So much for picking to watch another episode of the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on our Chicago Bears. Guys, we're looking at that running back issue again. Look, it's a bit of a goer. It's a bit of a talking point, isn't it, amongst Bears fans as to what happens in that running back room. You know, like I said in the video yesterday about Jamal Williams possibly being given a workout. Could he be a guy who comes in and kind of shares the load with the running back room as it is? Is DeAndre Swift really on his way out? You know, is he someone that the Bears see as superfluous to requirements? You know, I think, we've seen that Ben Johnson in the past, when he left Detroit, Ben Johnson didn't do anything in his power to stop that DeAndre Swift move away from the Lions. So, look, there's doubts there. Now, look, the big talking point last week was very much around Nick Chubb. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of report, a lot of rumour and etc., saying that that Chubb was off to an NFC North team, that it was going to be the end of his time in Cleveland. Cleveland obviously have brought in two new running backs. Quinshon Judkins been one of them, someone the Bears were reportedly interested in. However, everybody seemed to think, when Ken Carman, I think it was on 92.3, the fan said that as far as he was aware, his Chubb's time in Cleveland was over and he was close to moving to a team in the NFC North, which of course everybody put two and two together and got the Chicago Bears, because let's face it, everybody knew the Bears wanted a running back, didn't get one in the draft, didn't get the one they wanted in the draft. Obviously Genty was high on that thing, Travion Henderson was high on that request, Caleb Johnson, all of whom went elsewhere. That's why you don't get draft crushes, guys, because they end up in the wrong colours. So everyone presumed Chubb is going to Chicago. Now, reports today suggest that might not now be the case. Obviously, coming on the back of the Jamal Williams workout, it now appears that Chubb could be going somewhere else in the NFC North. So, of course, that gets tongues wagging, doesn't it? Where in the NFC North could he be off? And you know what? You kind of look and you kind of look, well, we don't really want to be facing Nick Chubb. That's not what we want, is it? Nick Chubb is a very good running back. If he is truly back to form and he is truly fully fit, and looking at those Instagram videos he's been posting, he certainly looks it. Well, it looks like there is a team in the NFC North interested in Nick Chubb, and it might not be the Bears. It might be the Green Bay Packers. Yes, those horrible Packers, those cheeseheads, those disgusting green and gold, or green and yellow, or green and snot yellow Packers from Wisconsin, Green Bay. Now, obviously, they've got Josh Jacobs at this moment in time as their RB1. But talk is that whilst Josh Jacobs would remain RB1, the Packers could well be interested in bringing in Nick Chubb to supplement Josh Jacobs, to give them a good 1-2 punch out of the backfield. Now, look, Nick Chubb has his worries. He has his concerns. Of course he does. The issues obviously there are around his fitness, how he's come back from that injury, the fact that he only played 10 games in the last two seasons. Obviously, like I said, the Instagram videos appear to show him back to full form. His age is not exactly something that goes for him, and I think he would be a kind of a 1-year rental with a prove-it deal. That's how it would be done by Ryan Poles, I think. There'd be very much a case of go out there, show us you're worth a contract, go out there, run for over 1,000 yards, get your double-figure touchdowns, and show us that you're truly worth it. But it now seems that maybe it wasn't the Bears, it was the Packers that were actually on the hot pursuit of Nick Chubb. Apparently they don't want to put a situation where Josh Jacobs becomes worn down, becomes an injury risk, becomes overused, and that's why they're interested in Nick Chubb. Lots of obviously Packers fans getting very excited about this. Like I said, he does have issues. The knee injury that he had led to him having only 102 snaps, averaging 3.3 yards per carry last season. It's, not unusual, however, to see people coming back from ACL tears to struggle. I read an article once saying that, that it could take 12 to 18 months for someone to come back to be fully fit. Actually, when they come back and they're playing, still 12 to 18 months of play time to actually become the running back they once previously were, or somewhere close to it. There's always that worry, isn't there, that if you twist, if you turn, if you jump, if you get hit, that the knee won't hold up. So, look, it is a concern. Of course it is. But, Chubb is a guy who, has a good track record, has a decent track record. He is a power back. He is someone who can run for over 1,000 yards. He can get double-digit TDs. It is kind of, I think, would be a risk. Of course it would. And, if the Packers are interested, I genuinely think the Bears should be going in there and putting in competition. We don't want to have to face a 1-2 punch of Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb twice a year, once at Lambeau and once at Soldier Field. We realistically, I'd rather see Caleb Williams handing the ball off to Nick Chubb than see Jordan Love doing it and Chubb running at our defense. I'd much rather see that happen. Now, we're not saying that there is no chance that the Bears, are not interested in Chubb. We're not saying that's the case. We're not saying that there is zero chance of this happening. This is just basically reports that are going round. And like I said, I think some people have kind of put 2 and 2 together and got 4 when it comes, got 5 or 6 actually, sorry, when it comes to Nick Chubb. However, the issue we've kind of got at this moment in time is that getting a deal over the line, getting a deal done, realistically, could well be a tricky one because of the fact that, the Bears don't have a great deal of cap space at this moment in time. If you look at the current cap situation with the Bears, it's $4 million. That is the effective cap space. Now, as I've said on previous videos, if we sign our we sign our rookies, we go over the cap. The Packers, however, have 31 million in effective cap space. This is a bit of a concern. So, they've obviously are in a much better place to try to attract someone like Nick Chubb. They, I think, could obviously give him a much better deal than we presently could. Now, this, of course, all relies on the fact that the Bears have not yet made any cuts. The Bears have not done any contract restructures. All of this, of course, could create a lot more cap space if it is that Ryan Poles is very determined to supplement that running back room. So, look, I think that if anything was to happen, it would happen closer to training camp or even perhaps during training camp, which of course then would kind of beg the question, well, what if Chubb's gone by that point? Which, there could be every chance with this link to the Packers. Brian Poles in that interview that he gave the other day, like I said, did obviously not mention DeAndre Swift. However, he did kind of give the impression that he wants to kind of give the Bears staff time to look at what they've already got in terms of DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, Ian Wheeler, the Kyle Monongai, Travis Homer, to see if anything is there, to see if we genuinely do need to go out and spend on a free agent. So, look, we've also obviously got UDFA Dion Hankins as well from UTEP. So, look, it is a situation that I think is very much in flux and very much kind of, still under review, still very much under review. Now, rookie minicamp starts on the 20th of May, which obviously we'll get a chance to look at Monongai and Dion Hankins and see if they're options. And then obviously once main training camp starts, we'll get a chance to kind of look at the other options and how it's going. And I think there's a kind of vision, I think, or a view that the Bears want to see how DeAndre Swift, how Roschon Johnson, how Ian Wheeler, how Kyle Monongai go behind this new offensive line, which obviously has been massively re-equipped, which obviously will help the running game with the additions of Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, Drew Dolman, and obviously as well how they will go under new coach Eric Bieniemy, and obviously new offensive scheme of Ben Johnson, stroke Declan Doyle, stroke Press Taylor, to see how that works. So, look, I think at the moment, the Chubb situation is very much that it's not going to happen anytime soon. It could still happen if he is available still, but it is a worrying link to the Packers. I would hate to see him in Green Bay. I'd hate to see them having a 1-2 punch of Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb. That would look very dangerous, and I think that's something, that our defense would have to be concerned about. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And guys, let's remember, bear down. See you later, Chicago.